Now, more than ever, our data is at risk. Our supply chains are in jeopardy. Our systems are broken, and businesses feel powerless. Dragonchain gives you a different way, a safer way, a better way, and you have power over your data. Dragonchain gives you proof in an untrusted world. Build now at Dragonchain.com, America's blockchain.
All right, welcome to World Blockchain Roundtable. I'm still trying to get my prep doc up, sorry. And let's see here. This week we have Dave from Den.social, we have Greg from Rivet, we have Sean, Satoshi Sean, and we have Austin from Rivet. So thanks for joining on this holiday week. All right, so last week, let me give a quick update to every host. It looks like, am I in the right paper? 190 lot, and every topic contributor last week got 83 lot. I think we got through a lot of questions last week, right? So all of those lot ownership tokens are NFTs. They come with perpetual passive income, free edits in the layer, and governance votes, which hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're thinking, maybe 1 to 3 weeks, we will have governance turned on, and then we can even start using the system to figure out how to change formats or whatever else, if you want someone other than me to do the intros for one thing, or whatever it would be. Theme this week.
What's that? With the world blockchain layer, I wasn't even thinking about that at all. That'll be interesting, because
when you think about it, even if we decide, because I was thinking there might be something where we want to make it so that the more questions we get through, maybe I don't know, it's almost like we could balance the amount distributed to the people asking the questions versus us, and gauge it based upon how concise we are with answering questions. I don't know, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people have good ideas, and now they'll be able to just propose that, and then other people who have been kind of like with us the whole time will be able to vote on it. So that'll be cool.
Yep.
At the same time, I don't think we want to bake everything down to yes and no answers.
Oh no, that wouldn't be. That would. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I see what you're saying. It is good to go into depth. I mean, when we had this in live, when it used to be Seattle, blockchain Seattle, it was pretty in depth. It's pretty much, you could stay as long as you wanted. We would usually cut it at an hour, but people would usually stay longer. But it would go on in pretty deep conversation. So, okay. Yep. Theme this week: any blockchain related question or topic from the community. So we'll go straight to the questions. Refresh. All right. And
hey, does it look like I'm looking up at the
yes, you just have to point.
Yeah, it does.
Right. Yes. Okay. Juan Esperanza. Topic: blockchain legal and regulatory hurdles. Where are we now? Where are we going? What are the most crypto inclusive countries? Very good question. And which are the worst? Who wants to take that first?
I don't have any.
I wanted to just make a comment on this, because there's actually, when it comes to that, it's a very broad question. There's a lot of countries that are much more friendly for crypto business, for you to do a startup. Then there's a lot of countries that are much more friendly to crypto for its citizens to use. So it is kind of, there's different places. But what I think is very interesting in the past couple of weeks is that crypto has become a fun and good political issue that different countries, towns, I've noticed it more in cities. And we talked about this years ago, that the whole system's messed up because, federal government has gotten too big. It's not just in the United States, it's everywhere. People like to govern themselves locally. And when municipalities and counties and states see the power and sovereignty that crypto gives them, just in blockchain, also in so many different ways, that they will adopt it. And I'm starting to see that now with different mayors saying that our city is going to be the crypto capital of the U.S., but it's all over the world. I did an interview with someone who's I forget the name of the town, but this was one of the poorest towns after World War I or World War II. and now it's like the richest town in Switzerland, because they've always focused on innovation, tech, and in the local government working with businesses. So they've been forward thinking since World War II, and they're not changing now. They want to be like the crypto capital of the world. But several countries and cities are all saying that now, and it's like a positive rivalry. But I think that's such an interesting movement that's happening now, and it's awesome.
That's similar to what I was going to say too. It's like the general vibe that I'm getting, and like you said, within the last few weeks, months, is that it seems like regulators or governments are finding out or realizing that they're going to have to do something. They can't just ignore it and hope it goes away. So that makes me a little bit more optimistic that people are even considering and thinking about it in a way that's real now, instead of just. I just remember the first time seeing it mentioned in Congress, the word Bitcoin, and now it's just an everyday conversation with some regulator somewhere. So that's huge. And in the U.S., it's been bad in the U.S. It's been bad enough to prevent me from really wanting to build anything until relatively recently, a couple of years ago. But yeah, I see it improving. I see it getting better. It ain't going to get better everywhere, but a lot of places are going to get better. And I think there'll be some competition. I'm starting to believe in free market among governments. So we'll see what that outcome.
I would say though,
another
we're
cool
still
thing about it is that it's putting focus back on real government in your local power. That's one thing I think is cool. Along with the crypto, along with everything else, just that focus is being brought back to that. I think it's awesome.
I would say though, we're still in a place where the crypto is largely operating in a legal gray area where there's not nearly as much definition regulatorily as there ought to be. With different regulatory agencies claiming some jurisdiction over this or that, and no real direction from Congress in terms of how they ought to be regulating it. And in general, in the U.S. at least, I think we're sort of seeing patterns develop in terms of they've done this and this and kind of established that this precedent is the way they do it, but there's still not written regulation, written legislation telling the regulators how to deal with this stuff. And I think for there to be real serious innovation, that's what we're going to need.
Yeah,
I think there are fewer people going around trying to what was it, local Bitcoins or something, right? There was I don't know if it was local officials or if it was feds or whatever, but there were active agents working against anybody who built something real, and they would try to set them up for failure and get them in trouble.
I think
it was a known thing in the community that you would, if you wanted to use local Bitcoin. Okay, who is that? What is that? Sorry. There was something local in the community, say where if you were using local Bitcoins, you had to make sure that if the person mentioned, "Hey, I want these because I'm going to buy drugs," that would be what the cop would come in and say, "Okay, I'm going to buy drugs." That if at any point you said, "Hey, I don't care what you do with it," that they would arrest you if you were selling it for that purpose. Knowingly. And so that, basically it was said, look, if anybody says that, it's like, well, I'm not selling it to you, right? That's it, right? Even though it's none of my business, but that was how they were doing it. Anyway, that's beside the point. Anyway,
I think that we're actually kind of in a danger zone worldwide right now. I would say I'm usually kind of optimistic on this, but I would say we're kind of in a danger zone worldwide right now when it comes to crypto and regulation, because we still have this mindset when regulators start talking content-wise, right? They're still thinking about it in terms of what analogy can we draw to the past about a thing that we've had to regulate, and how did that work? But they don't ask why, right? They don't ask why we decided to make it work that way. And until we start seeing people really ask that question, all of the regulations that get proposed are going to be burdened by what's called the the fallacy of functional fixedness, where we use this idea that worked in the past to apply to a new thing, and that new thing gets bounded by the functionality of the past. So we don't actually take advantage of everything that blockchains can do, because the only way that regulators can make sense of it is to analogize it to securities or analogize it to whatever else. But we end up with this bizarreness to it, because it's actually capable of eliminating a lot of the government's overhead in ways that would help everybody. And those are the things that we're not going to see if we have that pitfall.
I want to say something, but I know that Joe wants to say something, so I'm not going to say it. Go ahead, Joe.
I've been waiting. I've been polite. I've been waiting.
I know.
So I've been living this for fucking too long to know. And I've seen all of the big picture stuff. That I've been an engineer forever, right? So I remember when the internet came, right? That was a big telco engineering angle. That it was, if it was going to disrupt anything, it was going to be AT&T, the telephone, right? And it did. Yet it still happened. Yet we still had an action, a knowing action by Congress to say, we're not going to tax this. We're going to let it develop, right? It was a very valuable thing that turned into, I would argue, trillions of dollars of value in the U.S. Right now, the issue, and then you look at the legal world. DocuSign. It's legal to do a digital signature now because of the internet, right? They went all the way through the Supreme Court. Our lawyer was involved in that, right? So I knew decent amount of that. Somehow that happened. The legal world let that. Somehow, though, when you get into cryptocurrency, and then when it's up against whether it's the banks, whether it's the VCs, whether it's fiat currency, that has led to this monstrosity of confusion when you're trying to build a business, that you have no real way to say, this is what we should do. You could go get every lawyer in the world, and the most they'll do is like, well, this is the best guess, and don't do this, don't do that. And we've literally seen projects ruined by deferring entirely to their legal team on what they can build and what they should build. They know what their customer needs. They know it's not illegal. They know it's not immoral. They know it's not a bad thing. It's, in fact, usually has been a good thing. And yet, because their lawyers are telling, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. And you think about it, if you're regulated by every regulatory agency under the sun, you're going to have very small room that you can innovate, right?
Right.
And it's
yeah. If the post office decided we needed stamps for emails just because it uses a mail metaphor.
Exactly.
Yeah, seriously.
Exactly. Yep. And I do think that it's because of the interest. It is because the moneyed interest, so double-edged sword, you get a ton of interest because the number go up and speculation and things that people have never seen, which frankly, in my opinion, is the measured and monetary measured value of the network, which is when the internet was there was no number to measure it on. .com happened. You saw the closest we could get, which was a securities, an equity measurement of various applications on this network. Bitcoin and crypto directly measures the value of that network worldwide, which means for the first time in human history, I've said this so many times, that some kid in the middle of nowhere in Asia could actually buy in on the hottest, the best project startups that exist. That was the first time ever. And they were trying to say that was a bubble. I'm telling you, that is not a fucking bubble. That is literally just a direct measure that scared the shit out of people when they saw the value of it. And so, and the fact that some people wanted to stop that, right? So that's our problem. And we have these regulators that have their job, and literally every one of them are, reasonable, decent people, I think, but that they want a better job, right? So they have to basically nab some big thing so they can get employment at a big law firm and make the huge hourlies, and that's all they do.
That goes along with what I wanted, was what I said in the beginning, that and you use that word big picture, and we've been living this for so long. It's weird, but we really need to understand and recognize that we're freaks and we're living in a freak sci-fi movie. We are literally in some kind of quantum bubble where things move at an incredible rate. We are dinosaurs. We are old, ancient, elders in this, and we have to take a step back because our big picture is not. It's not working. It's not what's happening. Just like last week we talked about GameFi, this stupid thing that none of us really saw coming has done more for adoption, has done more to help humankind than I think crypto had done previously. So we're still looking at,
It definitely made it more accessible.
Can I add something to that?
At like the U.S. government to fix this and regulate, and I think we need to step back and see that no one had wanted to because everyone was scared to and no one understood, and we actually look for other countries. Hey, Germany's going to do this, or Canada's even going to do this, and they're going to lead, and we're going to follow, and then we're going to take over once they do some kind of framework. I think that it's going to be states that are going to start pushing in the direction, and I think that the federals will just follow. But to speak to the main point and about those regulators and how things work, I think the whole mood has shifted. Like I said, it's all positive now, to where even a year or 2 years ago, you come out as a politician, and Bitcoin is terrible, and buying and selling children and drugs, and now enough people know that's not the case. If you come out and say that as a politician or a regulator, you're kind of looked at like you're old racist uncle at Thanksgiving. Hey, you can't say that now.
But
2 years ago we let you talk your crap, but not anymore, Uncle John. And I think it's that way, to where now people that are looking to make a name for themselves are actually going to do it in a positive manner for crypto. I think it's all changing. And
we tried to spell this out years ago. I tried locally to lobby in the state to have some either mining or cryptocurrency tax breaks or anything like that, and they had no idea, right? But it was too early. But it was the point is, it's all a competition, and it's a competition between states. We've seen now it's a competition between cities, because cities now are showing they have an opportunity to make themselves the place to go if you're going to do this type of business. There's a competition between nations, and I even think there's a competition between industries, that some industries will get it sooner, like you mentioned, gaming, starting to get it, when they do, they're going to be successful, and so it's going to often be the poorest places, or the places who have the least opportunity right now, that see that ability to get foot in door.
That's what we're seeing.
And the other thing too that I say, like, I think a little bit of that sort of consoling tone, some of that backstepping, the backpedaling that they're doing, comes from the fact that things like Constitution DAO happened, right? So if you really want to look at what's going on at a fundamental level, follow the money, right? Like, the government's going to do whatever the biggest donors to the largest number of politicians can accomplish, right? And they see something like Constitution DAO happen, where one hedge fund guy has to make a point of curb stomping thousands of people at the last minute by way overbidding that auction, just so he can, quote, donate it to the public, right? It's two models of achieving public good, and one of them is a groundswell where, yes, there are impoverished areas, yes, there are impoverished people, yes, compared to hedge fund people, all of us in this room are not that big, right? But when we start putting our funds together, and when it's thousands or tens of thousands, or when we really get broad adoption, hundreds of thousands of people contributing to these things, fuck your lobbyists. We're going to have bigger lobbyists. We're going to own the lobbying firms.
Exactly.
This is what's going to happen. Yeah. And that's when things really shift. What we can't do is let them threaten us into a compromise solution before we get to that point, because they will run the table again and make sure that we never get another shot at the summit. So,
I'm looking forward to that too, man. I'm pretty openly against both the Republican and the Democratic Party right now, and a lot of most of my friends are either extremely one way or the other, and I'm seeing the erosion of illusion a little bit with the fact that all my hippie friends hated Trump and all my Trump friends hate Biden. But then also all my hippie friends are starting to see that the Biden thing's not going to fix anything. And all my Trump friends are starting to see like, well, Trump's not really going to fix anything. And so I'm motivated that that more people are becoming disillusioned with the fantasy of democracy or a republic, and that the more unjust laws get passed, the more of sort of an awakening, you could say, I guess, that will happen. And I think that crypto is doing that in a way that is special because it is there's some parts of it where you cannot regulate this aspect of this system. It just doesn't work that way, right? You can do that to a business and say you need to change your business model.
It's good. By the way,
yeah.
That's a little touch out of that question. That ends up being some of the behavior logic stuff that I like to talk about, because if you can give people the choice but provide the transparent incentives to do the what we want or what we don't want, then it's a very maybe libertarian angle on it. But anyway, Caesar's on his way, so that's what's going to happen in the end.
I think Dave used the right word there at the end, is awakening. I don't think that people are becoming like disenfranchised or kind of giving up on their liberal ideas or their super conservative ideas or Trump or Biden. I think people are just starting to really see the system for what it is, and they're actually waking up to it. I mean, right. I can't tell you how many people have. It's so obvious that they're just brainwashed. I'm like, man, the government sucks. The government does this. Government. They're like, yeah, man, those Democrats are stupid. And I was like, I didn't say that. I was like, yeah, but this, and this. Yeah, I hear you, man. Stupid Democrats.
Yeah, you're right. That purple empire's sock puppet show really is quite compelling.
And now people are starting to be like, yeah, that's messed up. I was like, yeah.
So we went long.
Left wing, right wing, same bird.
Yeah, it's all divide and conquer. The whole world. That's all the world is, divide and conquer. You just have to get out of that, and you'll see it. Next week, if I am correct, the entire show is going to be basically on that subject, on regulation. So we can throw in whatever fits in there, but we'll have a lot next week about that. So that's a great question. Next up, Angel Breaker question: which blockchain metaverse has the most exciting real world use cases? Does that mean real world as in tangible things that have been built, or is there some map? Is that some augmented reality?
Yeah, that's becoming the question, right? What is?
Yeah, I think so too. That's something about blockchain, is that you could literally have the greatest part of the metaverse, and they'd be totally separate, like Seek. I mean, you can go to a concert totally virtually. You can have the real experience, like you can go to the bathroom. I mean, you can go to that stadium. Everything is in that headset, and that's that. But when it comes to like NFT trading cards or other stuff, movies and so on, that's going to be a completely separate thing. So I think one thing that blockchain allows is for you to really hyper focus on that one industry or that one thing that you're trying to do, and make it the best possible thing. Or when you just throw the metaverse out there, people think of like Second Life and, goofy looking avatars walking around or something, but it can be completely, different.
Yeah, the metaverse could be completely augmented reality. You could still overlay a metaverse on top of the real world. Like, let's say it's a real estate metaverse and you're just walking around and you get bubbles that pop up to tell you the asking price of the houses or something like that. That's a metaverse sort of.
Or imagine going to like your own backyard, but I'm having an extension put on my patio and my driveway extended, and imagine getting the bid, but then being able to see what they're going to do. Like you can look at your driveway, see the extension, see how it's going to be built. You can ask for extras and see what things will look like right there. Like with Amazon, when you're going to buy something, you can use the augmented reality, but you could use that for businesses that are putting a bid on that.
The worst thing though is then Sean, you're having your backyard barbecue and some freaking naked giraffe shows up out of nowhere. I mean, it's like, what are the rules then in this metaverse? What are the regulators?
All giraffes
are going to protect you?
All giraffes are naked.
I'm always a fan of chaos, so I like Decentraland for that reason, because it's just like there's very few limits on what you're allowed to do, except for, what the tech is capable of course. But, you can link outside to stuff. You can sell sneakers there in real life and then ship them. You can have a concert. You can sell your NFT paintings. You can do whatever you want. I don't think anybody knows yet how the closed, proprietary metaverses are going to be, or even how useful they're going to be, or if they're going to outperform. I don't know. I have no idea. It's so early.
Right. I would say the interoperability layers are the most interesting ones right now, because we're at a place where there is no standardization around any particular protocols for for NFTs beyond the basic functions of the blockchains that support them. Right. Like there's no central central anything, which is great yet. Like we don't have an open protocol design for how data is going to be managed for those NFTs outside of the stuff that goes on chain, right? And until that gets answered in a way that that is super compelling, I can't say that anybody has a head start. But I think there's some really neat ideas out there. Decentraland's cool. The sandbox looks pretty neat. I love crypto motors because they're trying to get these, like a car that you can take anywhere where a metaverse place might have a car you can drive. It's one of my favorites, but I don't know where the winner is yet.
My mind has been blown by that stuff. Like I think it was Veve. They had a Back to the Future where you could buy a DeLorean, but then you could get in it and drive, in AR, which was a really, really expensive. And Lee, my buddy, he bought the RC car, but it was so detailed and so real, and you drove it in augmented reality. There wasn't a difference whether you bought a real. I mean, and I hate to say this because it's so dystopian, but to me, there was no difference between buying a real RC car and then just looking up from your phone and seeing it versus buying this digital NFT one and driving it on your phone in augmented reality. It was there. You were controlling it. If you hit, something on the road, you would hit something on the road. It was
So you think you got the same value out of it, or a comparable value out of it like that? It's
not going to break, and if you hit something, it doesn't actually mess it up.
But
for your one pair of
toy, right? You're playing with it, or it's a tool, or it's maybe you're racing other people. But you found that that was just as fulfilling driving.
Yeah, it was just as entertaining.
Yeah, okay.
And the cost. I don't have to worry about the room. I mean, I'm not going to display it in real life. That's the only thing. But you can.
And widely adopted AR glasses are really the only missing piece to being able to do things like display it. And
everything is way too clunky, right? That I've even the most recent stuff. It's just like it's too slow, or especially if they are AR stuff on a phone, it's like you pick it up and it lags.
Yeah, this wasn't. That's what was so. It was just the coolest thing, man. It really was.
Yeah, it is kind of clunky. I kind of keep finding. I hope that what am I even trying to say? I hope Decentraland looks at something like SIA, Skynet or something, and other storage networks to compare performance on them. Because that's what I get a lot is IPFS and is great for static, holding an image for an NFT and stuff. But when you're dynamically loading thousands of pieces of content in, some of which that are closer to you, physically on a server, than others, that's where I see a lot of the clunkiness is there's not a consistent delay, between when you're moving around the Decentraland. Can I share my screen real quick? I had one thing that somebody said to me that I thought was interesting, and I just wanted to give an example. I bought some stupid stuff in Decentraland, so I'm just going to bring it up.
Awesome.
So I've paid money for these little digital items because I like them. That's a good enough reason for me. And at the time, and I've got a couple of plots in Decentraland, so that's the one to answer. From me, it's I think that's going to be cool. But what I've heard from a friend of mine that's into this stuff too is that he was really waiting for true cross compatibility of items. So all this stuff right here, it works on one game, and the fact that I've spent money on it, in real life, I could take this festival hat and I could wear it to a bunch of different festivals, even if I only bought it at Halloween. I could wear it at Bonnaroo if I wanted to. So until that same kind of thing happens in metaverses, there's people like him,
Well,
at least, are not going to really go in and spend money on it until they feel like, okay, I can carry this around. Now in the future, maybe that'll happen. Maybe all these will be incorporated, and that's like a thing.
And I'll tell you, that's been like say we especially like even back 2016, 2017, that was kind of like one of the many holy grails of adoption that was hopeful and intended, and it didn't happen. And every time we ever spoke as a project to any of the people building games, building anything that was similar to a game with a metaverse or games were usually how do I swords and shields and guns back and forth between games. And I was consistently told enough, and sometimes it was just people saying waving it off, and at first that's what I thought, but turns out a lot of it is in the difficulty of standardizing items between games, and how do you render them, and how do you determine, I have some random sword from some freaking game I've never heard of. What is its power? It's like it's almost an undoable thing unless you said every one of those is just a blue sword, in which case, my amazing crazy blue sword or this amazing red car just looks like this in this game.
Well, I think that's how it'll happen first, though, is you'll support certain collections. And then you'll have a default like, it's a sword thing NFT, so we'll give you a sword if you bring that in the game.
And generally, the way it's trying to standardize these things, these sorts of things works is like, you'll have Decentraland and say, we'll open up our standard and other people can implement it, and then 6 other projects will open up their standards, and now you have a bunch of different competing standards, and they're not. Like that,
and then
nobody goes to the effort to actually incorporate them. It's like, and of course, actually achieving a standard takes a long time. So, like, people complain about how Apple has had, the Lightning port and whatever the port they had before, the 30-pin thing before that. But the reason they did that was because they could do things technologically that the standard wasn't capable of yet, and it was going to take 2 or 3 more years before the standard caught up with what they were capable of. And so, I mean, standardizing things is hard, and it really slows you down if what you're trying to do is build a project that allows users to do cool things. Waiting for everything to become standardized means waiting a long time to build your product, and then you're going to get stomped by people who don't wait.
Can I tell you too? That's because W3C or any of the regular, and they're great. We've worked with them before. A lot of great people, but the issue, in my opinion, is the whole organization will have for how we do standards as humans on Earth for technology is very, very old, and frankly, there should be some, a standards DAO org that, because I had talked about this way back. It's like, we're freaking blockchain. Why are we doing this W3C centralized standards org that is manned entirely by Microsoft, IBM, and Google? It should be a decentralized thing that is more engineering focused than it was, right? And that's a big part of it. Maybe they would be faster. Maybe, if you could develop reasonable standards with a known cadence of releases, to know, well, it's early, it's going to change, right? But at least we're all following that same standard where the change is going to be a known thing. We could act much faster. But the way that the standards orgs work right now, it's way too academic. You have a bunch of people who just want to develop resumes on standards orgs. That's all they're there for, right? So anyway,
I mean, on the question that they asked, there's something that is happening, I think. And we're seeing it in our microcosm, our little bubble of crypto, but it's changing. And in my lifetime, I've seen really the death of competition when it comes to the just in general. You can look at just cell phone companies. When cell phones first came out, there was good competition that was constantly driving price and benefits for the consumer. You can't even get a free cell phone anymore. You have to pay for a cell phone. You could sign a contract for 20 years. They don't give a crap. We don't care about your business. What doesn't matter. We're not gonna do anything to try to entice you because there's no competition, whether it's big tech or even, any industry you can look at, they've really learned, hey, we could just collude a little bit, not enough to where it's, illegal, but then we don't have to worry so much. I give a little, you get a little more profit, I get a little more profit later. That's how things are now. And I think in crypto, there's so many projects coming out that are trying to do the same thing, that competition is so much harder, which drives that development. Now we've seen, I was working for, Xbox, and that was like the holy grail, to be able to move your items, from one game to another. And once people realize, hey, you could do that, game developers are doing that on their own, like all in-house.
Yeah.
Like the same game developer, you may be able to use the currency really, so you're not just putting a bunch of money into this game and then the game kind of dies, no one uses it, all that money sitting there. You can use that balance in some other games. That has come about. But until one company emerges to where it has popularity and some clout, and then they do that, that will drive every other, developer to say, hey, we got to put a bunch of money in this, or we're going to fall behind.
Well, that's just returning to competition, returning to
and
a
that's
competitive environment.
that competition will
But people are
drive
cheap.
this development.
But people are sheep, and if everybody gravitates to one, it doesn't matter. And that's why certain separations exist. And by the way, didn't people? Does Obama give any cell phones anymore, Sean? Because I think I'm just joking. I don't know. Either way, let's see here. Next. How?
Well, yeah, you can get those, but those are just flip phones.
Are they still called Obama phones, though?
They're still called
I don't
Obama
know,
phones. Yeah.
I think so. I didn't know if that still existed. How
I think it
important
does.
is staking to a long-time holder? Long notes, right? It
Depends on the holder.
depends on the project too, right? I mean, some projects
Yeah.
this doesn't matter at all. There's no staking. Some projects there's auto staking. Some you have to go and stake on a node.
I think it depends on the context a lot too, right? Like if you're talking staking in terms of DeFi, you're talking making a commitment that allows for an additional smart contract boost in either a governance token or an extra bump to your APY because they can count on your liquidity being available. If you're talking governance in the form of like ENS, then you're talking about staking as a way to delegate your voting power to somebody else. I think the important thing with staking isn't so much the right of entry, but the power of the right of exit, right? It's that you can pull your stake. And I think those are going to be the things that longtime holders need to realize are their primary. You wouldn't want to get into a situation where your stake gets locked in unless you were really sure, right? Yeah. But if you can pull your stake, then man, stake those governance tokens and make your opinions known to those people who you're delegating your voting power to. Because if they don't follow you, if they don't listen to you, or if they do things that you don't agree with, pull that stake.
But it really is. It depends on the project, and some projects, staking has an important tokenomics aspect. Some of them has an important governance aspect. I don't know that you can say there's. I don't know that there are any claims that would stand across all projects that involve staking in one way or another.
I think the only claim. So I was thinking about it just from my perspective. What I like, regardless of the different types of staking and the different mechanics of it and stuff, staking itself is important to me. I hadn't really thought about it before. I didn't look at the questions ahead of time today, and so like it's important because of anonymity to me, because I need to have some sort of gauge to measure other people in the network. Where there's not any sort of like trust system involved. And so if staking is a skin in the game situation, I've played around with a little bit of when DeFi took off this year earlier, and it was just like, or last year, I don't know how the years roll anymore, I guess, but it was exciting, and there was a bunch of stuff that was staking just for staking's sake, and as a catchphrase, I guess, was yield farming and things like that. And that's wonderful, and you should reward people for staking. But but I'm looking at it in the context of, okay, Dragonchain. It's very important to me because I run some Dragon nodes, and I need to be able to show that I've got skin in the game relative to the amount of trust I should hold, or something like that. And same thing with, Greg, you were talking about some different things to look for in staking. Just being able to hold your own keys while staking without locking them up in a smart contract. I have a friend here locally that lost $50,000 or something like that because he signed up for the passive income thing, right? So he staked the tokens and he put them in a smart contract, and then he forgot about it. He didn't forget about it. He was just like, cool, I'm staked. I'm earning passive income, and I'm just going to let it,
and that's why staking is an expression of trust ultimately, right? And that's why it requires like what Austin said, where there's no one rule you can apply. You have to look at the specific project. I think that's exactly right. Like if you're talking about staking on ETH2, right? That is a type of staking where you're kind of expressing trust that network has been well designed and well composed and isn't going to crash, or they're not going to rug you. That's not true of every network that you can stake in, and that's not true of every staking schema that you can stake in. Hold on to those tokens and don't stake them unless you are sure that you one, are okay with losing all of them if something goes wrong, and two, understand the projects before you decide to. That's what I would say.
It's similar to mining at that level, but if you take it to the more abstract side, like say Dragonchain created this time measure, right? It used to be DDSS. That literally was supposed to be an incentive for people to control their own keys. That was the primary, because we knew that a lot of people were normies. It was very early in crypto, and we didn't want, at the time especially, every exchange was being hacked. People were losing real money. And so we said, okay, we want you to understand that you should get a hardware wallet or do something very, research what you need to do and hold your freaking keys, right? And it turned into a measure that can be evaluated as a reputation in our network. We then we took it and made it the scarcity on the network itself, which was further ingrained. But it actually, that model is what I will tell you makes our network scalable, because we aren't basing it on how much hardware you're running. We're not basing it on the things that other projects are. Now, the weird thing about that is that time, and we had the intention at one point, maybe even in the future, to let other projects, when there's maybe a little less dogmatic tribalism going on, to let other projects come in and measure their time as well, so that they could say, okay, this person has a lot of X token time, and so therefore they can do various things in this community. The weird thing about it is it's kind of led to me to think, if we were to step back, that already exists in every token. Bitcoin has had the inverse of it, the reverse of it, which is Bitcoin stays destroyed forever, although nobody uses that anymore. But it is a measure of the, how old that token was that just moved, right? We measure it, how powerful that token is that's been held. Same thing either way. But the crazy thing is that that's already there. So theoretically, if I were to, if I had all the time in the world, I would fork Ethereum and I would fork one of the dexes, right? So now I would combine them into one and say, look, you can create any token you want on this platform. And instead of having these crazy fee structures based upon, other things, the congestion of the network or competition for the block, to literally make all fees a percentage based. You can't do that with tokens atop a platform, though, because not everybody wants that freaking token, right? It's like, I don't know what that spam token is. I don't care if I get 3% of it. I don't care if I get 10% of it as a miner, right? So what you do, though, is if you had embedded into the network itself the DEX capabilities, then all of a sudden every single token to be created on the freaking chain would have to have liquidity. So you'd have to say, look, I'm going to create a new token and I'm going to put 10 ETH, 100 ETH behind it. Now I have a token atop the system that any miner can directly interchange. So, okay, I'm going to take my 3%. I'm going to immediately cash out to the base network token, right? Or not, but that liquidity is there, right?
That's
and that's
cool.
the thing.
It's an
Anyway.
interesting idea. Another one thing that I just wanted to add from a security standpoint too, that's really important to keep in mind. Pretty much every smart contract system sets an allowance for your tokens that you use to interact with it when you open that thing up, and they're oftentimes unlimited. So there are tools out there, like there's one on Etherscan where you can actually connect up and check out what allowances you've set. Make sure that if you experiment with this a lot and you end up pulling a stake, that you go zero out any allowances you've made to that contract, because those can allow somebody to come in and just drain you if that was their whole plan. So like, definitely don't just create these relationships and then forget that they existed, because those allowances stay until you erase them.
And by the way, Ethereum is not the only thing out there, which, I mean, everything is based upon it because they're the most advanced, especially.
That is what I know. So.
Yeah. And it's, but there's, anyway, that's cool. So you want to go next? That was really good set of answers out of it. Cause I was like, I don't know precisely what the question meant, right? Street meat. Why is not privacy one of the largest items on every blockchain list?
Let's try not to dive too far back into regulations on this one, but
yeah,
that's I was a Darkcoin miner, Dash miner for a long time, and I saw that was one of the things that at the time nobody. Well, they did, and then they decided that we can't list privacy coins now because of regulations, and we're going to get stomped if we do that. So it was just more difficult to get yourself in that economy and on exchanges and stuff like that. So that's one reason.
Yeah, I think it's just more difficult overall. It's difficult for a user interface. It's easier to not worry about privacy that much.
Yeah,
well, I think this comes to the rush, right? This comes to the rush to grow. When the internet got big, right? We had this concept of IP addresses that were literally just a necessary construct that wasn't really it wasn't really anonymous, it wasn't really private, but it also wasn't particularly identifying, right? It wasn't a system designed to allow you to exploit addressing to find out who people were, but it wasn't designed to stop you from doing that if you decided to engineer it for that later. Yep. And when it became apparent that privacy was going to be difficult to keep over the long haul, we would have had to stop and fundamentally re-engineer that level of the network, that layer of things, in order to make privacy part of its core, right? That means slowing down. That means looking at the choices you've made and maybe unmaking some of those choices in a way that prevented things from moving forward according to how you anticipated they would, according to how some people's investors anticipated they would. There's a momentum to move forward that eventually becomes too hard to halt, right? And I think that's similar with blockchains, because some of the tech necessary to make things private didn't emerge until after things had progressed a little bit further. So it's something we have to push for as a thing that people want.
And not only did the tech not emerge until later, I mean, it is in many ways inherently more difficult. Like, I mean, you talk about the early internet and IPs. Like, we have Tor. That's a thing that exists, but it's dog slow. And it's not dog slow simply because, there's not enough people. Like, it by its nature, the way that it handles obscuring who you are and where you're coming from, you got to make a bunch of hops through the internet around all over the world. Your traffic has a lot more places to go. It has to be slower. There's no way for it not to be.
Well, can I interject on Tor for a second, actually, because that's a really good point, and Tor is a really good example of something that was built before current tech, and that now there's projects working on a solution for exactly what you're talking about. Tor can only route TCP. It cannot do UDP for like video and voice and things like that the way that other networks can. As far as I understand, maybe I understand it wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's right. And I listened to a really interesting conversation. It was an AMA with somebody who's developing another network that is onion routed, but they're doing video conferencing and voice calls and everything on it, and it is high bandwidth and it is reliable. And what they did was they added incentivization to the node runners to incentivize good service. And one of the things that the developer said that I hadn't thought of before was that Tor node operators, it isn't that they don't have any incentives. It's that the only positive incentive is to do good, to be altruistic, which isn't really a good one to use because of human nature. And so the only real incentive was a negative incentive, which is by running enough of these nodes, you can collect data on people, and you can if you own the entrance and the exit, and you run algorithms and AI routines, you can extract data to hurt people's privacy, and that is so there's a negative incentive there. And so I'm excited to see stuff that works today get improved dramatically by the proper incentives.
Can I say something too? Because it is definitely more difficult on the tech side, right? The nature of that feature is notably harder to do. It's harder to prove. It's harder to test the whole thing, right? And the people that are wanting to attack it are more driven than in other areas. So it's you have to hit all the edge cases. So you guys talked about the difficulty of the technical side, but I think the additional new projects, I think will probably be obviously a better measure, because now you're going to have people who have a reason to run those nodes. But the interesting thing, in my view, is that the driver isn't there from the user perspective. It is hard for a normal person to understand why, and especially how to use these networks and how to handle privacy in their own work. I mean, it's hard for technophiles to do that well, and you can imagine a normal person. So the demand is not there as much as it should be. And maybe a lot of the waking up coming is going to scare that into some people, but the demand isn't there to push it as much as it would be pushed, I think.
There's also, I think, an importance in not cutting corners on the side of the building, the people building it, because we have a better perspective on how dangerous things can be, and how easy it is to lose privacy forever. And once you've lost it, it's very hard to retrieve, right? We have a responsibility as people who are building these systems to do things the right way so that privacy can be preserved. And there are going to be all the economic pressures in the world to move past that, the less people understand it. So, we also have to try to teach as much as we can. And none of these things are easy to harmonize in the old way of thinking about startup investing, right? With the need to grow and need to move fast, right? But I think that's also, like you said, the incentive structures, Dave, are things that we can do with crypto and blockchains that may make it possible to forestall our worst natures to hustle and hurry and cut corners. And we can actually maybe get it right this time. But I do think that it's a duty, and I think it's a duty that you have to hold the projects you support accountable to, or accountable for.
Self-funding helps a lot, to where you're not as influenced by who's financially supporting a project. You can build it the way it needs to be built. The gaming industry, look how common it's become to release a game super early when it's not ready, just because there's people that don't build games who are saying our investors need to start seeing a return on their money, so get the game out there now. And then all the investors lose their money because the game's not done and you're an idiot. Stop. So I think that just saying cryptocurrency, you can literally we're just starting this thing called DaveDAO. You can just create a currency, and if you believe in it, then maybe you'll get in and support that and create some value in a way that Joe was touching on earlier, that people couldn't do in the past. You couldn't invest in a startup because you're poor. That's the actual reason. You're not allowed to because you're poor. You can go spend all your money on the scratch-off tickets if you want after every payday, but you can't invest in startups. Now, and I'm way off the topic, but it's an anything goes show, right? I
think it is on topic, actually, man.
I just imagine how transformative it is to think about I think about homeless people whenever I drive past them all the time on the street. And I think about how people won't help them out and they'll just yell at them to go get a job. And I'm just thinking, like, what if it didn't matter? Like, there's all sorts of problems with that, right? But what if it didn't matter where you lived, if you had a home, how you smelled, what you looked like, if you'd been able to shower or bathe in the past week, but you could still objectively, nobody on the internet knows you're a dog. You could objectively interact with an economy. You could objectively provide value to a network. And it's like an untapped source. It's homeless people. You know, I feel like everybody that's homeless should go on DIN.
Right. Well, I mean, there's this fundamental concept embedded in privacy. Privacy emerges from the fact that we all fundamentally own ourselves, and we can't get rid of that. We can't say that we no longer own ourselves. We can't really alienate that. That's what inalienable rights mean, right? You can't give them away. And if we don't have acknowledgement of the notion of self-ownership, we don't have any need for the concept of privacy. So I think that's why it's important, is that the people do own themselves, right? And I don't think you'd find anybody who would argue against that case. I mean, maybe you would, but they wouldn't be the sort of people that you want to talk to.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it would. I mean, I don't have to tell you, but yeah, it's there's a lot of different types of people out there.
Yep.
That's a very profound statement, Greg.
I'm good for one or two of those every once in a while.
Excellent. Okay, so we're gonna say let's close out. We're 56 minutes. Let's give updates. Dave, what's going on in your world? Where can people?
Oh man! So today is just a marathon of doing this. I think this morning we've got 2 DIN shows today. This morning I did my show with a friend of mine that's going to be joining me, Coffee with DIN. That is still every Wednesday morning. And then today, later, right, we're going to be doing the DIN governance call. But basically, we're just getting ready to roll out our governance features where right now, everybody that owns the different layers and the different communities in our community has sort of 1 or 2 admins that change settings and things like that. That isn't the goal. That isn't even the design. That was just, stepping stones. So now we're almost ready to turn over everything. Like I have a couple of layers where I'll no longer be the person who makes the decision to change the things and how things work. So if you're a layer owner, go make any last minute changes you want to get the layer off to a good start before layer governance rolls out. If you are if you're an admin, if you're an owner, you'll have the lot tokens already. You can start voting on stuff as soon as it's out. So that's in testing already. And so that's what I'm doing.
Right. Greg, and when are we getting Liberty DAO, by the way? I want to ask you that. But either way, what's coming up?
Right. Well, okay. So Rivet's got a lot of exciting stuff going on right now. I will save some of that for Austin. We got some pretty neat stuff coming that I'm really excited to talk about more when we get to the place where we're ready to. But as far as what I would promote for people to do, come join us on den.social. Come join this show. Ask us questions. We'd love to hear from you. And if you've got an idea and you get a crazy idea that you want to build based on what you've heard here, go to rivet.cloud and check us out and build it, because the only person stopping you is you. That'd be what I'd say.
Right on. That's good. Sean, what is up?
I'm really behind on a lot of work, so I have a lot to put out. Interviews, reviews, giving away some NFTs. Started to make some NFTs over on Wax. I'm liking their platform and the fact that it's pennies instead of hundreds of dollars like on Ethereum.
I got a couple of NFTs over there too. Yeah, Wax.
Yeah, I'll give you guys some of the first run NFTs I made. Just give me your wallets. Cool. Now you guys, people on the show. Yeah. It's not like I don't like you guys out there, but I only have 8. So.
Right on. Austin.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Thanksgiving's the big thing for this week. But no, over at Rivet, we've been working on Cardinal, which is our Ethereum para client. It essentially acts like an Ethereum client, but has some great scalability ramifications in terms of scaling out and running lots of servers. We finally got it running on the Ethereum mainnet. We're hoping to have it running on Ethereum Classic by the end of this week. And the big goal for us with Cardinal is, be able to scale better and serve faster responses to our users, but also be able to scale out to a bunch of different chains. And we're seeing chain onboarding, coming along quickly.
Nice. That's excellent. That's exciting stuff. Okay. For Dragonchain, there's a lot going on. Do watch the DIN governance call later. There's so much happening there. And happy Thanksgiving, no matter where you are. You don't have to be in the US. I think you can still eat a turkey and give thanks, right? For the turkey or whatever. Either way.
My wife's side of the family, they do, they have geese over there, I guess, instead of turkey.
Okay. Yep. Does it have to be a bird?
I guess so.
Okay.
Don't eat any damn bats, though.
No. That's a mammal.
It doesn't have to be a bird.
Yeah.
It can be carrots or something. It doesn't have to be an animal. It's fine.
Yes. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Right?
bats are just no good because they're made of wood.
That was good. That was
Man.
good.
Yeah, it was a good
We ended with a dad joke.
Thank you, Dad.
and-
That was good.
And we watch this again next week. It will be on Thursday next week, normal time, everything. Thanks for joining early. Make sure that you share this one so that all the people who gave these are really good questions this week, I think, and it's a good variety. So it's like that was actually pretty good. A little jarring because the subject changes compared to the last few episodes. So anyway, make sure you share it and subscribe and everything. I think that's it, right? So have a good day. Thank you.
The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now there are many. Because soon there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?